Hello, everybody, and welcome to Skofi Sessions. My name is Jonathan Schofield. You can call me Skofi, and this is my shameless excuse to hang out with peers in the industry, friends of mine, people I find fascinating, and hopefully you get some value out of our fireside ramblings. Our special guest today is none other than Pete Busam of Equilibrium Consulting, or Mark IT Techs, and he can provide a little more context about that here in a second. Today, we are tackling the age-old question of marketing, specifically from the vantage point of managed IT services. If that's you, you own and operate or run sales or marketing or business development for an IT company, this is for you. If you are a connoisseur of general marketing or just general business and you like Pete or myself, you may get a lot of value out of this today. Or if you're a vendor or thought leader in this space and this is of personal relevance to you because of the industry that you find yourself in, we are glad that you're here. But why your marketing sucks and how to fix it, that is today's topic for discussion. We're going to roll for the next 25, 30 minutes and have some fun. Pete, please take a second, introduce yourself to our viewers today, and let's get cooking.
All right. Well, my name is Pete Busam. A lot of people probably know me out there. I've been around in the channel now 30 plus years. So I'm not going to tell some of the stories that I told you in the green room, because they're just. But those that know me know those stories and have heard them. But going back to sailor and Navy days and some crazy antics. But I've been in the channel for about 35 years, just shy of it, and worked in MSP in a very large provider in the late 90s, IT company that I was part of a defense contractor, and we sold to General Dynamics. So we were about a $65 million firm at that point. Came out, went to work for the PE guys, worked in what was called an internet service provider that had 8,000 square foot of co-location facility that we called application service providers. And as good marketeers, bandwidth came down, and now we call it cloud. So we built out a cloud infrastructure in a NEBS compliant and a very compliant thing with a Lucent 5E switch. And at those, yes, we still had dial-up modems. If anybody was, yes, I am old. So, but we supplied our own dial tone to our modems, and we made money by supplying dial tone to our modems. So it was a money all around kind of venture. Ran a couple small MSPs that I had some sweat equity in, took them down, rebuilt them, grew them up, and then exited, and I started Equilibrium Consulting because I realized MSPs needed sales and marketing help. We started predominantly on sales coaching, and we migrated over time, over the last 17 and a half years, into a marketing first component, because you really need to market before you bring a salesperson on. You really need to get your marketing and your brand equity out there. And we're going to talk today about a lot of those things. And I'm pretty sure that you have some things up your sleeve that you're just hiding away and waiting to throw at me to see what we come up with. But let's dive in.
I love it. Thank you so much, Pete, for sharing that. And I don't know that I have anything up my sleeve, just, recent conversations I've had with some of my own partners or prospects that I've been building relationships with over the last weeks and months have brought this particular topic kicking and screaming into the forefront of my mind. So it's of particular relevance to me because of just things going on in recent past. But yeah, so you made a comment earlier, you need to market before you sell. There's so much in that statement that I want to unpack with you. I want to kick this off, though, with a question for you, Pete. So you have experience working with an MSP and then an ISP, building the cloud before the cloud was cool, and this transition into sales coaching, which evolved into full-on marketing for IT companies. So I think you'll appreciate this question. All right. So let's say there's a IT business owner, and let's say you're traveling. PJ Weary, what? My guy I went to college with in the chat. I'm glad you're here, PJ.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hello,
if you're
PJ.
watching, say hi. Tell us where you're watching from. Glad that you're here. Um, Man, blast from the past right there, PJ. I hope you're doing good. All right, I want you to pretend, Pete, that you're traveling and you go down to the hotel bar. Okay, you're sitting at the bar and you strike up a conversation with the gentleman next to you. You come to find out that he is an IT business owner. All right, now he's in a hurry. He just told you his Uber is 3 minutes out, and he's going to go to the airport, and you may not ever see him again. You get to ask him 3 questions before he gets up and walks away. And these questions are meant to basically qualify him for you. Like, is he a good fit for the services you provide? Identify his biggest challenges and sniff out opportunity, and set some kind of precedent for a future conversation. I'd be very curious, Pete, what 3 questions are you asking that individual?
Well, I got to be honest with you. So, geography never bothers me because we work all over the place, right? So that doesn't really matter. But I always ask, are you owner led, or do you have a staff that handles sales and marketing? That's a big qualifier for us.
Mm-hmm.
We want to know, because if you're owner led, you're good for some things that we do, but not for everything, right?
Mm.
And so you're not staged. The second thing is expectations. Now you can't always get expectations down right away. You'd love to be able to get an owner's expectations down right away, but what's their expectation of a sales and marketing, or a marketing and sales, going with marketing lead sales in many
Mm.
respects, right? So and then you know always how do I get in touch with you?
Right? I love that. So give me your business card, or let's connect on
Yeah.
LinkedIn or something like that. I love
Yep.
it. I love it.
Exactly.
So your first,
Because we only had so much time before he's running to his Uber. So
that's exactly right. Those are great
we
questions.
gotta have a follow up. So
That's right. Seal the deal with the follow up. So yeah, you're going to first identify like what's the status quo in your organization from like a sales and marketing maturity, and you're kind of like using headcount and staff to give yourself a litmus test on where they may be.
hmm
And then yeah, what does success look like in sales and marketing for you? What do you expect to happen if you spend a sales or marketing or business development dollar? What do you expect to happen next? I love those questions, Pete. Now,
yeah.
we said why your marketing sucks. We made that big claim, and how to fix it. So, what would you say is the status quo in the industry when it comes to managed IT service providers and how they currently approach going to market? Why does their marketing suck, generally speaking?
Oh, I love this. And here's the cold hard truth, and a lot of owners don't want to hear it. They know what they like. They don't know what their customers like. So they think marketing should be how they think. And they think very technical. Most owners are started their business, they're very technical in nature, right? They're great when they get in front of somebody, but they talk about technical things. They don't
Right,
talk about business outcomes.
right.
So their thought on how to approach selling to a customer, or how to market to a customer, is this is what I look for when I would be looking for technology. Well,
Mhm.
you know the technology. They don't. It's just
That's
like
right.
cybersecurity. Put away all the buzzwords. Stop talking speeds, feeds, and buzzwords. Start talking journey. Hey,
Mhm.
you're a CFO. Tell me the concerns of a CFO. Do you understand the concerns of a CFO? Do you understand the concerns of a CEO or an IT director? Each one of them comes from a different chair, and each one has a different set of concerns. And you should be understanding what they're, and empathetic to their concerns, so you can address them, because
For
you'll
sure.
have plenty of time to get to speeds and feeds. So your
That's right.
marketing sucks, number one, because you're selling it the way and positioning it the way that you would interpret it, and you're the
Mhm.
you're the specialist. So
That's right.
stop being the specialist and take a step back and say, I'm dumb. I don't understand technology. But boy, I'm worried about how much I'm going to spend on my budget on IT services next year. And boy, I'm worried about, is my backup ransomware free? And are my patches getting done? And is there security in the cloud? These are things that business leaders are thinking about in the SMB. They're not thinking about, we put a cloud and it's got this product or that product, or we've got MDR and EDR. Throw it all in the trash can. It means
That's
nothing.
right. So recently, we were planning in my business, findmyitpartner.com, we have this mechanism that our partners can take advantage of. We call them business development sprints, where once a month they can request an outreach campaign from us, typically in the form of cold calls. And what we typically will do with that campaign is structure it around a limited, highly targeted list, and it's meant to have an incredibly targeted call to action. So not just slinging IT. And in recent past, we were planning one of these with a partner in the Northwest, and they had come to us requesting this sprint and say, "Hey, I know it's like kind of last minute, but we have a webinar in 2 weeks. We'd love to have you guys kind of promote this webinar and call these folks and invite them to attend." Said, okay, interesting. Who's the webinar for? Was my first question. They said it was for nonprofits. Perfect. We have a list, right? Yes, we have a list of nonprofits. Perfect. So what's the webinar about? He said, it's about cybersecurity for nonprofits. I said, okay. I said, so what are you wanting us to do? Like, well, we'd like you to call the people on this list and invite them to attend our webinar for cybersecurity for nonprofits. I said, I'm not saying we're not going to do that. I'm not saying that we can't, but I have a question for you. You guys work with nonprofits today, right? I said, yes, we do. I said, in your professional experience working with nonprofits, do they typically care very much about cybersecurity? Is it something that occupies the forefront of their mind, generally speaking? And the gentleman on the other side of the Zoom call, his shoulder slumped a little bit. And he said, I see your point. No, not really. I said, so when we call them and say, hey, we've got this slick webinar all about cybersecurity for nonprofits, do you anticipate that they're going to really want to talk to us about that? And I said, I'm not trying to discourage you. I said, in your experience, what do nonprofits typically care about? And he stroked his chin and thought for a little bit. He said, they care a lot about what they spend money on. I said, okay, yeah. All right. Do you think that there's any connection between cybersecurity and budget, cost savings, protecting assets so you don't have to spend in the future? And he's like, all right. So we started putting some pieces together. And it's like, in an ideal world, when you're going to go out and connect with your prospect, to your point, Pete, we can't just assume that because it's important to us, it's important to our target market. If it was important to them, if it was organically important to them, they probably wouldn't need you, right?
Correct. Right on.
So
Right
I
on.
love that. So that's the status quo. The as you said, like the bits and bytes, we spend too much time there when we really should be spending time identifying who our customer is and what they care about. Am I hearing that correctly?
You did. Because then you can take your marketing down a whole different rabbit trail, because now it's all about the journey. So now you can start addressing concerns, and then those concerns can lead to the solutions. But the solutions shouldn't be cybersecurity. They should be safeguarding your corporate assets. And that is where you can get into, what are the steps that you would take that would be important to a CFO to safeguard their data? And so you take them on a journey through what it's like to be with you, and they can dream a little bit with you. And when they can dream with you, you find the right pain, and they'll find the money to do the work, right? And that's the key. But it's all about the journey now. It's not about what you think, and that's a big thing for owners to understand, um, that are getting there. So
We got our man PJ still in the chat. Imagination, empathy. What are their experiences and what are their fears?
yeah.
Yeah, I call this fear of loss, hope for gain. Those are the two primary drivers for a buyer. They're either trying to take advantage of something to take advantage of an opportunity, or they're trying to mitigate a risk or a fear, overcome
Hmm.
something that's painful and uncomfortable. And you won't be able to put yourself in the mind of that opportunity or that fear without empathy and without imagination. And you said when they can dream with you, man, what a beautiful place to have a prospect. When they get to the point where it's a
Right.
collaborative exercise and we are now
Yep.
dreaming together, that is
Yeah.
when sales becomes effortless, right? If you feel like sales and marketing are a grind, it's because you're failing to get your customer to the point where they are dreaming with you, as you said, Pete. I love that. Before we go into the journey too much, because I want to go into the journey, because that's where this needs to go. I want to just sit in the status quo for a moment longer, because I suspect there are people watching this right now or the recording back later who have thrown tons of mashed potatoes against the wall in hopes that something would stick. Literally just
Right.
this morning, I had a conversation with one of my partners who said, we've tried a couple different outsourced agencies. We've done a couple different providers. I've had many conversations with folks who have done digital advertising and SEO and all of these different tactics. And they're shocked when they've spent hundreds, sometimes thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars on a tactic. And then they are inevitably disappointed. Do you, Pete, believe that status quo, like the failure of the tactic, is perhaps a symptom of not addressing that status quo as we defined it?
So yeah, I think there's a couple things there, and I think there's another big mistake right there in marketing, right? And it starts with an expectation of what
Mm,
marketing is and isn't, and that's a topic we can bounce back to. But people don't have an expectation because they haven't had good experiences, right? They've gone down. I'm just going to do cold calling, and I'm going to outsource that, or I'm going to do email blasts, and I'm going to do that. The fact is that no one channel works on its own. It requires the other ones to put your brand across all mediums. And we call that omni-channel marketing. And not that I'm giving an advertisement, but I write an article every Monday called Omni-Channel Monday. It sits in our website. It's right off of our resource menu. You can grab it and review it anytime. But it's got all topics. But you've got to use all the different components. So warming up, it could take up to 25 touches for a
yeah.
prospect to come to you, right? And let's face it, I always sit there and I go like this. When I talk with a new owner, I get like this. I said, I got up this morning, I got out of bed and I stretched my arms. I said, gosh, I'm going to work and I'm going to get a new IT provider. That never happens. Never, right?
Yeah.
But having your brand out on social, doing webinars, doing podcasts, doing emails, sending a letter every now and then, showing up in community stuff, all of these things are your marketing program, not
Hmm.
just one. And that's what breaks the status quo.
That's
Those
right.
that are doing those multiple things, but if you're choosing one channel or two channels, you're going to lose. You're going to spend a lot of money. And yeah, those mashed potatoes, eventually they dry up and come off the wall. And even the spaghetti that you threw up and hoped that it was sticking in the ceiling, it's coming back down also. That's the hardest part of our job in convincing somebody to come to an outsource agency is because of their prior experiences,
That's right.
right? And so that status quo, it doesn't work anymore. It never worked before. It may have for a little bit because of where market conditions were, but let's face it, small and medium businesses are now on their third, fourth, or fifth MSP as compared to 10 years ago when they were just trying out their first one.
That's right.
So they've gotten smarter. They've learned to be a better buyer, and as that they've grown. And many of them have come from a larger company and started a small business. So
That's
they've
right.
got the lessons learned up above. So omni-channel is the way. That's how you're going to break status quo and you're going to get out of that suck model.
100%. Amanda chimes in. We agree with you, and you agree with us 100%. A couple analogies come to mind as I hear you talk, Pete, about omni-channel. First of all, like tactics versus strategy, it's kind of like, yes, if you go into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean in a canoe and you drop a fishing line over the side, can you call yourself a fisherman? Yes. Will you catch fish? You might. You might. You might.
You
Are
might.
you likely to catch fish? Are you going to catch enough fish to sustain your career as a fisherman? Probably not. No.
No.
So like that's the thing I think that's really frustrating for a lot of business owners is they're like they see other people in their canoes or their boats or their yachts and they see them out there and I'm using the same damn fishing pole that the other guy is using. Why is my bait not striking? Why is, and like I'm spending money on this thing just like it looks like my peers are, like my vendors are, and I'm not catching anything. It's like, well, there's a lot more to it than just the tactic of taking a thing. There's so many more variables. So there's a difference between being a fisherman in the middle of the Atlantic throwing a line over the side, and there's a difference between him and the individual who says, I fish for cod in the North Atlantic between this month and that month using this myriad of techniques that I know attract or catch cod and the right kind of cod and under the right conditions where I know I'm going to get the best yield. And that is an individual who has spent, in many cases, a lifetime of study to understand
Mm-hmm.
how it is done. That's the first analogy that comes to mind. The other one, I don't know, maybe I'll save for another time. So I want to make sure we have time to go into a lot more here. So that's the status quo. If you're watching this now, and you identify with this frustration of you've tried some stuff and you haven't seen results, uh, do you understand who your target is? Do you understand what's important to them? And are you approaching it from a multi-channel perspective to earn what I call the mental real estate of your future customer? And it's
Mm-hmm.
very typically it's not just any one thing; it's the sum total of all of the channels that earn that mental real estate. So I agree 100%, Pete. Now let's assume we've done the work. We've done the work. We know who our customer is. We're intimately familiar with their reality. We know the things that they hope for. We know the things they're afraid of. We know the challenges that they face. Now we're going to go to market. And you talk about the journey. I want to spend some time here with you. The journey. How do I, as the service provider, the business owner, or the person responsible for sales and marketing at my MSP, how do I begin to architect that journey? Where should it start? Where does it end? And where am I most likely to get off the rails?
So I have this thing where a lot of people love to use the word like, well, this is my ICP. So that's great. That tells you what level, what position, how big, how small, revenue, geography. That's great. They fit your ICP, but do they fit your psychographic? What's the psyche? So now you have to take the ICP and break that down to, the psychology side of
Mm,
that buyer. How does
right.
a CEO buy? How does a CFO buy? Out of your ICP, what are those key positions and how do they buy? And
Mm-hmm.
then boil that down into concerns, and then boil that down into what creates the sales moment that I got to get that new IT director when I wake up in the morning, or
Right.
IT company. What is that? So the psychographic is the piece that's missing that a lot of people don't look at. And they're like, okay, we're going to do the journey. We know what their concerns are. Well, ask any MSP, there's probably about 5 things that you'll hear. They outgrew us. They did this. They did that. You know what that bottom line to all that is? That's all noise. The bottom line is their current provider no longer is taking care of them and they don't feel loved anymore. And everybody in life just wants a hug, right? Customers need to be hugged. There's a great book called Hug Your Customers. Um, I love it. But you have to hug your customers or somebody else will, right?
Mm,
And that's part of the psychographic, right?
right.
Marketing doesn't just stop after you acquire the customer. you have to continue to market your customer and go back. It's a whole untapped revenue source that you leave on the table every time. But that's part two. So the key here is build out that psychographic. What gets them to a buying movement on their journey? What goes through their mind? Where we said they dream with you, what does that dream look like? Like, if you were to sit here and the bubbles are just popping above your head, the cartoon bubbles, what are they saying in them? What's going off in their mind? So, you gotta hug. You gotta, stay with it. Hug your prospects. Hug your customers.
That's
Right.
right.
And you'll find that journey in there in that psychographic as you figure out what that dream was. Think about when you're a business owner and you started your business. What were your dreams?
Oh,
What were those
absolutely.
bubbles above your head? Right. That's what made you buy. That's what motivated you to do different things. So.
Absolutely love it. I love it so much. And PJ asked a really great question. What does a real life example of dreaming look like? How do you hook them into that conversation? So, in our world, PJ, with IT service providers and those who need those services, there's a lot of ambiguity, I think, on both sides that it can be easily cleared up with a simple conversation with your existing customers. This is an exercise that I always encourage my IT providers to do. Take your top 5 clients, and not the ones that are like the exceptions to the rule, the ones that if you got 25 more of them in 2025, it would completely change your business for the better. Like your best clients, the ones that you would go get 100 more of if you could. Sit down with them and ask them questions. And what I really encourage you to do in that conversation is to reverse engineer the buying experience they had with you. Like if I was gone tomorrow, how would you go about replacing me? And why? What are the reasons that you wish that doesn't happen? And when we first got connected, what was the status quo you lived in? And what was the critical moment for you where like, there's no other option. This is absolutely the best choice. And then you didn't look back. You don't have to guess. That's, I guess my biggest point is what does it look like to dream with a prospect? Well, if you have customers now that you have relationships with that are positive and good, right? That's already happened. It already has happened. So rather than like guess at what you need to do to recreate it, go back and see how that came to be and replicate that. But don't just take one customer's word for it. You got to, validate it across a couple.
And
But start there.
I love that part. I mean, and I tell my customers all the time, go see your customer. Take them out to lunch. Don't do a QBR.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do a sit down business review. Go have lunch.
That's right.
Right? Go have lunch. And you will learn more in that lunch period. And I guarantee you will walk out with work. Like, come see me next week. Let's talk about this additional work. And you will cover what you need to cover with them in a very unassuming way. But we are still in a human business, right? AI is coming, whatever, but we're still going to be a human touch business.
That's
people
right.
buy from people they like. People buy from people they know. And the brand comes second to fulfill what those people did, right? So if you get to know your customer, they will tell you anything. They will tell you where you suck. They will tell you where you're great. And I'll tell you what, I would encourage you to bring your team in-house and bring those customers in to have lunch with your team and ask them to tell them what they like and what they don't like. Because customer feedback provides a loyal customer if you take their feedback and put it into your process, right? That shows maturity of your organization, but it also shows you what their journey has been like, the way that you're treating them. And it also takes you, again, from that conversation, do I get up and go look for another IT provider? Not if you're listening, not if you're hugging. And that's a way to hug your customer.
I love it. I love it so much. A specific example for PJ's benefit, because he asked, a specific example came to mind. I'm literally in the process of writing a case study for one of my partners right now. And I interviewed him last week. And so there'll be a written version of this in the near future that you guys can read and you can, critique my case study building. But the story was such that there was a local country club that is an establishment in the community. It's been around for a long, long time. They've got a campus where they've got all their buildings. They've got obviously a busy season in the spring and summer months.
Mhm.
And the IT infrastructure was just this hodgepodge situation where as the country club grew and evolved and developed over the years, they just brought in independent operators from time to time to hook this up or patch this thing or move that box or all that kind of thing with no rhyme or reason. And of course, now that they're humming along and growing, they're having operational pain where their POS system is routinely down and it's inhibiting sales, it's frustrating orders and their customers, and it's costing them revenue. So the real life example of dreaming, that provider was able to connect with them in the crucible of pain and help them dream of a future state where they didn't have to always be calling somebody to unplug this, plug in that. A future state where they weren't losing revenue because the systems that needed to be in place were always in place, and that customers were no longer frustrated because of delays or missed orders or whatever it might be. And you fast forward 2 years later, and a very hefty investment in reconfiguring their infrastructure and wiring and their processes, their operations and procedures, etc. And I'm very excited to get some quotes from these folks that we can include in the case study, because it sounds like that future state was not just an empty promise, that the IT provider delivered on it. So the hook is to be able to have those stories. Pete, I don't know if this is your experience, but I'm shocked how many IT providers who have provided similar outcomes don't have those stories written down and are not really very adept at articulating them to help paint the picture of that dream and validate the dream. And now that's the hook, I think. The hugs, you talk about the hugs, is like, let me tell you the story of how I gave a hug. And my customer is so glad that I hugged them. And I can hug you too. You want a hug? That's beautiful.
And that's the beauty of case stories. I mean, that's a key component. For us on the channel side, what brings us business? Peers.
That's right.
Peer validation, social validation is a
Mhm.
huge component of your omni-channel, right? And so when other peers or other businesses have experienced something and you can put it into a small one-page case study or a two-page case study and just give them on the cursory, they may know that business and they may go out and ask that business what it was like to work with you and experience. And so not only did you document the dream of that other business of their journey, but now you're giving them the opportunity to go talk with that peer and experience it firsthand. And there's a lot of power in that peer sharing and that social, um, acceptance that goes with it.
Absolutely. It can't be overstated. In fact, if you took 10 MSPs and you asked them each one where their last customer came from, very likely 9 of them are going to say what?
Referral.
Referral. They're going to say word of mouth. So that peer validation is a primary driver for a lot of these folks. And that's not necessarily satisfying to hear for a lot of you, because I know that feels like it doesn't scale, but that's one of the channels. And as you continue to deliver powerful experiences and really great hugs, you're going to see that go up. The referrals do go up when it's one part of all the parts. Now,
And
before
referrals at every side are probably the best marketing source for any lead, and it's already qualified at that point, because I'm
That's
not
right.
referring somebody to you if it's going to reflect poorly on me.
That's right.
So I've already done a little bit of the salesmanship for you, and you're walking in with an SQL. It's yours to lose at that point.
That's right.
So.
The way that I've always articulated that, because you've probably heard me say it before, mental real estate of the prospect, the work of the marketer is to accrue mental real estate with your future customer. In the case of a referral, it has been brokered on your behalf. Someone is already occupying that mental real estate. The trust has already been built. So like the main work of marketing is already been done for you. So you should cherish those relationships, invest in those relationships, and seek to cultivate more of them. And your marketing can work towards helping facilitate more of those. Even in my own venture this last year, conversations with folks like you, Pete, and other peers on the channel, just the more and more that I'm out there and connecting with folks that are not my avatar, if you will, not my ideal customer, I've gotten tremendous value from fostering those relationships because
Absolutely.
that's another channel.
Yep.
We're running out of time. I'm going to say we got about 5 minutes left before we wrap up. Folks that are watching this right now, or feel free if you're watching the recording back later, you have Pete's and my attention. So if you have any questions for Pete or myself, feel free to drop them in the chat. And if this is a recording later, we will do our best to respond to them in the future, of course. But you have the experts, so take advantage of it if you have any questions. If we don't have any questions, what I'd like to use the rest of this time for is, Pete, just let folks who are watching now know why they should connect with you, if they should connect with you, and why, and what's the best way.
So, and that's a great comment, PJ. Yes, retention is always cheaper than acquisition. Always. It takes so much effort and lift to get a contact and groom them to get them to become a profitable. But if you've got a customer already, it's an untapped source for you to cultivate and grow. And there's a lot of work left in your customers. Don't ever forget that. So, so why would you connect with me? Well, obviously you can find me just about anywhere. You can Google me, you can go to LinkedIn, you can go to, I'm pretty good about keeping my Facebook more personal, but you can connect through the company and follow the company on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever the heck its name is these days. XAI, AIX.
Who knows?
But we're out there, and you'll find us. My URL is right on the screen. You can schedule time with me directly through the website if you'd like to just chat for 15 minutes or you'd like to brainstorm. There's all kinds of resources. I like to sit down and chat with people out there because I learn from anybody I talk to. And that's key. I learned from an old Japanese counterpart of mine when I was in the civilian side in the DoD sector, working on Japanese ships, building destroyers at one part of my life with the Japanese. And my counterpart would say, "You Americans, you go into a meeting and you think you know everything already, and then you have a meeting to talk about a meeting." He said, "We go into a meeting, and if you learn one thing, even if it's not related to the topic, the meeting was a success." And I've kind of carried that through. So I learn from everybody and everything. And I try and take that back into attributes or what have you. So I'm always happy to talk to anybody, give them some tidbits, put them in a direction. And if you're looking to do marketing, we have a product that will fit you at every scale. Just because you don't see it on equilibriumconsult.com doesn't mean that we don't have it on our, and Jonathan mentioned earlier, our Mark IT. It's Marketex, right? Marketing techs, right, for IT. So it's Marketex. Well, we have another site called Market Vault. It's a subscription service. You can download high quality content with all of it in a subscription and save yourself. And you can take an hour and get your brand launched, right? And we'll give you some guidance and consulting. You can set up times to talk with us. So there's all kinds of knowledge. We publish all the time, whether it's LinkedIn or in our website. There's just a lot of content. We just launched another series on Optimize. It's called Optimize This, and it's all about the CRM and the CPQ solutions and how they integrate, and tips and tricks that are going to be going by Denise Busam, who happens to be our vice president and my wife. But she is a real incredible source for optimizing sales and marketing solutions in that MarTech stack. So whether it's HubSpot, ConnectWise, QuoteWorks, so that's why you should connect. We have a lot of education, so go take advantage of it. It's there for you.
This is great. Everybody watching, if you have not taken the time to get 30 minutes with Pete, I highly recommend it. If nothing else, you're going to walk away with another meaningful connection in your network and some deep insight And best case scenario, you guys will work together and he's going to help you establish that journey that we talked about today for your customers. I can't thank you enough for being here today, Pete. This has been a lot of fun. I'm going to wrap up the stream now, and there's going to be a title card on the screen for those of you watching, places where you can see this recording in the future and follow other content that we create in other platforms. And we'd love to see you everywhere else that we're doing these types of things. And don't be shy. Appreciate you all, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.